Okay. It's thing. 8. There he is. We got a quorum. Guess Dan is not coming tonight. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the April 9th Planning and Zoning meeting. At this point here, we would do a roll call.
Here.
Michael Boyd,
Here.
Timothy Connor,
Here.
Jack Corbett is excused, Michael Goodman. And Mark Langella
Here.
and Anthony Lombardo.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you.
Oh, and I guess, yeah, Dan is not here tonight, right? Yeah. Okay, we have a quorum. At this point here, we'd like to pledge the flag. Please join with me. Stand up, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everybody. Okay, has everyone had a chance to review the minutes? If so, can we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Connor. Beat him to it. Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Okay, our next item, by the way, we have a quasi-judicial process at this point. There we have, first of all, I'd like to explain something. Last night I had to go to the hospital and I ripped my cornea, so I'm viewing with glasses, not my normal contacts and glasses. So excuse me for being a little bit seem inept tonight, but I'm trying to get through it. Okay, we have time limits. We'll have, staff will have a 10-minute presentation. The applicant has 15-minute presentation. And the public comment is 3 minutes unless you're speaking for a group. And if you're speaking for a group, you get 5 minutes. If you are speaking for a group, then no one else in the group will be able to speak. And then there's going to be a rebuttal after the public comment if needed for 10 minutes. Okay, so item number 4 is a quasi-judicial needing disclosure. Does anyone have any ex parte communication on this item? Mr. Goodman? No? No. Okay. So this is project number 2024-02-0023. It's a variance in the R1 district. And I guess, Simone, you're doing it tonight?
Yes, I am.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, this is a variance for 2 accessory structures, one attached and one detached, up in the hammock off of Hernandez Ave. The future land use is residential, low-density rural estate. And the zoning is R1 residential, but this is a lot of record, like most of the lots in this area, having been platted before the current LDC was adopted. The flood zone shows AE, so it is part of a flood zone, special flood zone hazard area, but all construction was appropriate and permitted for this hazard area. Soils are Bimini sands consistent with the surrounding area, and there are no wetlands on the property. As you can see, the original Lot 2, as it appears in the original plat, with a lot depth of 265 feet, but in, I believe, 1989, the easterly 85 feet were split off and sold. Here is the approved site plan showing the two accessory buildings. In the upper right-hand, technically northwest corner, is the attached two-story building. Because it is attached to the primary structure through the breezeway, it's considered part of the primary structure and follows the same setbacks, which for this zoning would be 20 feet in the rear and 7.5 feet on the sides, because again, it is a lot of record. So on the site plan was approved with a 20.25 foot setback in the rear and a 7.75 setback on the side. And in the lower right-hand, technically northeast corner, is the two-story detached garage. Because this accessory structure is over 12 feet high, it would have to meet the same setbacks as the primary structure in the R1 district, but because it's an accessory structure, it does not get the same 7.5 foot side setback relief that it normally would. So it must meet the normal R1 district side setback, which is 10 feet, and the site plan was approved with a side setback of 10.25 feet. When the final survey came in, it revealed an encroachment of 3.24 inches into the rear setback by the attached accessory structure and an encroachment of 2.52 inches into the side setback by the detached garage. Individually, these encroachments could be administratively approved through an administrative variance because there are less than 5% of their setbacks, but because there are two, they have to be approved by the board. For context and visualization, this is the setback behind the detached garage. So we're looking west. And this is the rear setback behind the attached structure, with that fence on the right-hand side being the rear property line. So to summarize, this property is about 1,800 square feet. Again, there was the easterly 85 feet were split off in 1989, making the property an undersized lot of record. The rear setback is 20 feet, and the side setbacks are 7.5 to the primary structure and 10 for the accessory. The permit was issued based on an approved site plan, but then the final survey came in showing a 19.73 foot rear setback and a 9.79 foot side setback. And again, individually, these would have qualified for administrative variances. Your options as the board are to find that all the variance criteria have been met and approved project number 2024-020023 for a 0.21 foot side yard setback variance from the required 10 foot minimum and a 0.27 foot rear yard variance from the required 20 foot minimum rear yard setback for one detached and one attached accessory structure in the R1 district. Or you can find that all the variance criteria have not been met and deny project number 2024-020023. Or you can determine that more information is needed and continue the variance request to a time and date certain. If there is a decision on a denial, we would ask that you call out the specific criteria that are not met. And with that, I will close awaiting any questions or comments from the board and submit the report for the record.
Thank you, Simone. Did a great job. One thing, if you could you just identify yourself for the record?
Oh, I'm Simone Kenny, planner.
Thank you. Okay, would the applicant like to come forward and make a presentation? You're the applicant? You got to come to the microphone, please. You got to come to the microphone. You're not required to give a presentation. Just identify yourself.
Carl Epp,
Okay.
contractor,
Okay.
and I thought she did a perfect job saying exactly what happened or where we're at.
Okay.
We,
All right. If that's your statement, that's fine.
yeah, I applied for an administrative variance, and because it was twice on there, it didn't qualify for the administrative. It's just a matter of inches. So we're here.
Yeah.
Asking you to approve the variance.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Okay, at this point, I don't know if anyone on the board has any questions for staff or for the applicant. If not, I'm going to open up the public comment
Yeah, I have a
Connor?
question. Can you explain to me why the de minimis rule does not apply here? I read that in report, but I didn't understand it.
So we can do administrative variances if the encroachment is less than 5% of the setback, but that only applies if it's only one. And in this case, there are two.
Oh,
So it
it's
has to
just
be
simply
approved
because
by the
there's
board.
2 requests bundled.
Yes, that's
Got
correct.
it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carn. Anyone else
Like
have any
to
questions
make-
for staff?
No, no question. I'd like to make a motion.
I'd like to hear a public comment first.
Oh, public comment?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Any other comments from staff? I'm from board. Okay. At this point, I'd like to open up to the public. Anyone like to come forward and speak on this matter? Please do and identify yourself. Seeing no one come forward, I will bring it back to the board.
I would like to make a motion to approve the 2 variances.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, I'm assuming that you find all the criteria met, correct?
Correct.
That's correct. Okay. Do we have any discussion on this matter? Seeing none, I'd like to open up to a vote. All those in favor of the motion to approve the variance signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The motion is approved. You're all set, sir. Okay, the next item, item number 5, I believe it is another quasi-judicial needing disclosure. Does anyone have any quasi-judicial disclosure they want to, ex parte disclosures? Seeing none. Okay, this one is project number 2024-02-0041. This is also a variance in the R1. Ms. Kenny?
Simone Kenny, planner. This is another after-the-fact variance for a metal accessory structure, again, up in the hammock off of North Ocean Shore. The future land use is split with residential low intensity on the western side and mixed use intensity on the eastern. And the zoning is also split with R1 rural residential on the western and RC residential commercial on the eastern side. The flood zone shows a special flood hazard area by the intercoastal waterway there, but the accessory structure is located entirely within flood zone X. The soils are entirely cocoa-bulo complex, and there are no wetlands on the parcel. So this is lot 53, right in the middle there, bounded by A1A and the intercoastal. The accessory structure is located entirely within the R1 zoned portion of the property and must meet the 10-foot minimum side yard setback for that district. Here's the approved site plan showing that 10-foot setback. The final survey then came in showing a 7.4 setback, which is an encroachment of 2.6 feet. For context and visualization, this is what the metal garage looks like. Here's what that rear setback looks like. It's a side setback behind the garage. And now because this is a non-residential building, it is not subject to the A1A Scenic Corridors Architectural Review Committee, but I wanted to include those photos showing the street view, which shows that with all the vegetative buffer, the building is not visible from the street. Summarize, this lot is just about an acre and a half. The side setbacks are 10 feet in the R1 district. The variance request is for a left south side setback. The zoning is split R1 and RC, but the building is located entirely within the R1 zone portion. The permit was issued based on an approved site plan. Then the final survey came in showing a 7.4 left south side setback, and this is an after-the-fact variance. Your options are, as the board, are to find that all variance criteria have been met and therefore approve project number 2024-02-0041 for a 2.6-foot left south side setback variance from the required 10-foot minimum side yard setback in the R1 district. Or you can find that all criteria have not been met and deny project number 2024-02-0041, or you can determine that more information is needed and continue the variance request to a time and date certain. If there is a decision on a denial, we would ask that you call out specific criteria that are not met. And with that, I will close awaiting any questions or comments from the board and submit the report for the record.
Thank you, Simone. At this point, is the applicant present? Yep, like to come forward and make a presentation, please. Please identify yourself on the mic.
I'm Brian Keekover, owner with my wife. First time in trouble, so I'm a little bit nervous. Bear with me. Obviously, there was an error that occurred. We had a bunch of extenuating circumstances and difficulty with surveys and such. I don't know if you want me to go through all the explanation of that process. I will say, even after the building has been up for 6 months, it took the entirety of that time to get the survey that was presented to you. They had to come back numerous times. I had 2 other survey companies out there to confirm the location of the building itself, to confirm that it is indeed within the setback. It was an unintentional error and one I regret. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Hang on a second. Does any board members have any questions for the applicant or for staff?
I have one. The fence that is behind it, is that your fence there, or is that your neighbor's fence? There is a fence behind it, right? Did I see a white vinyl
Correct, you
fence?
did.
That's your fence there, or your neighbor's?
It was existing on
Existing.
arrival. I don't know. It's
Okay.
there between our properties.
Gotcha. I was just wondering if you put that up, after you built the building or not, so it was there
I have not,
existing?
no.
Okay.
I connected to the fence over by the house.
Gotcha. Okay. And you built the structure, owner built it, or you contracted out
I-
for that?
Had a company assemble and manufacture it.
Okay. That's it.
I have a couple questions. Just to continue on those 2 questions. One, you are the owner contractor, so you hired people, but there wasn't a general contractor on the job.
Correct.
I noticed on the survey, the same thing with the fence. Do you know if your previous owner had installed it for your property, or was it installed for the neighbor's property? Do you know?
I do not know. Based on the survey, it looks like the rear is within my property and then deviates somewhere around the mid portion of the house.
Right, right. And obviously, you probably took some measurements off of that fence, assuming the fence, which is a fatal mistake, but,
True, but I also had honestly, trying to get the survey, took months to get anyone to even call me back. I used the point that I know. I found the pin in the southwest corner, measuring it off the distance from the house, took a line out towards the east and pulled it that way, and then made sure I was well within the fence line. And obviously, it was still off.
yeah, there are some marks on your survey that show iron rods found,
Correct.
and those were by the surveyor. The surveyor that you had, was he the original surveyor, or was he
From my purchase, yes.
a surveyor before that on the house? Was he the original surveyor?
Prior to my purchasing the
Yeah,
property, I
yeah.
don't know.
So you just hired this guy and,
When I purchased the property, I had to obtain a survey, and I used this company.
and he would not come out and stake the property for you in a decent amount of time? That was what the issue was? Stake not the property, but the
Forgive my
location of
interruption.
the garage?
Correct. I attempted to reach him for 2 months. My concrete contractor was about to cancel me. And I did make the leap of faith and a poor measurement.
Okay. All right. Any other questions for the applicant, for staff? Nope. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
At this point, I'd like to open it up to the public. Anyone in the public like to come forward and make a comment on this, please do so now. Seeing no one come forward, I bring it back to the board.
I don't have any questions. I was wondering, like you mentioned where that fence is, a fence on his property or the neighbor's neighbor's property, and that we weren't sure.
No,
Right.
I mean, it was, his testimony is that it was there prior to him purchasing the property. I did look at the surveys, and one of the survey of the same gentleman did not show the fence there.
I see the vinyl fence.
Right, but if you look at the survey that he has with the site plan,
Uh-huh.
it is not on that survey.
Oh, I see there.
So, and that's the same gentleman. That's why I was unsure of who did the original work, and it's unclear. He may not have located it. He did, there was a few other things on there that's not on the other one. It was a little unclear, not necessarily the most complete survey, if you ask me, but.
Can you go back to the previous survey, the one with the fence on it? So it looks like the goes along the back there. It looks like it tails along the back of the neighbor's property there, not quite on, which is typical for. Is the neighbor here? Does someone live at that on that property there? Is there a house there?
Yeah, there is a house.
They're not here?
There is a house.
I'm sorry, sir, you can't speak from up there. Thank you.
Come on up
If
for a
you'd like to
second.
come to the microphone, you can, yeah.
You spoke to the neighbors about?
I did.
Yeah. There.
Once I realized I was out of compliance,
Okay.
I contacted the neighbors, especially Bob Williams, my neighbor that it most affects.
And
His
there.
main question was when he received the letter, what additional structure am I going to be building? I said, nothing, it's the existing. And then he said, oh, quote, I don't care.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Hold on. Now that we're talking about the fence, this survey appears to show the fence coming to a point, going across the back of your yard, and then another fence going down the other property line. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. The place where it crosses your property, north to south, does it continue on the neighbor's property in either direction?
Are we talking along the water line or
Parallel to the water,
parallel to the water along the property line?
along the back of either of your neighbors?
No.
Okay. So that appears to be his fence. I mean, the way this is
Yeah.
configured.
I did add the rear fence because it's a different
Well,
fence.
the rear fence obviously is yours, but there would be no reason for those side fences to connect to that unless it was a common scheme in my mind. So I don't know, but that's the way it looks to me.
I mean, there's.
Thank you.
The ownership of the fence is a separate item, but it relates to this, but it also means if that's your fence, you're encroaching your fence on his property. And if it's on his property, then I guess it really wouldn't matter, but.
It was there prior
Yeah,
to.
I mean, I obviously I can see the, where you would take a measurement off the fence, making an assumption, that's what a lot of people do. Being a GC myself, I've learned the hard way, as you're learning right now. I get that surveyor out there. I would never go forward without having it staked out, especially on lots like this where you're, if you had a 20-acre piece and you're 500 feet in all the way around, I don't think it really matters. But when you're fighting, these property lines. But I mean, on item number 1, these lots are heavily wooded and it is more difficult. The topography is unique to each one of those lots because of the trees. So I do understand his issue with, not professionally surveying it, but trying to figure out, where that is, so.
I think, being that he spoke to the neighbor, they're fine. I don't see any reason why not to make a motion to approve the application.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Mr. Goodman seconds. Again, I'm assuming that you say he meets all the criteria, correct?
Yes, I do.
All right. Do we have any other comments or any other discussion on this motion?
No.
Seeing no other comments or discussion, I'll bring it to the vote. All those in favor of approving the variance, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Nope. You're all set, sir. Thank you. Okay, this is now item number 6, also a quasi judicial. Do we have any ex parte communication?
No, sir.
Nope. Mr. Connor, none, right? Mr. Connor? Mr. Connor? Any ex parte communication on this item? All right. Okay, this is a special exception for a pond in the agricultural district. Are you doing this, Adam?
Yeah.
Are you going to identify yourself?
Yes, sir. Adam Mengel, Growth Management Director.
All right.
Figured to change the venue. It's kind of nice to see it from this side. So see if I can get this to work. Maybe it's not going to work. No juice.
You have professional help coming, Adam.
Already failing at my job. You don't mind if someone, you want to play Vanna for a couple of seconds and hit me forward? So this is a subject property, Potatowville Road at the bottom of the parcel that you see there, that's also what was identified previously as the FEC Railroad right-of-way, the Florida East Coast Railroad right-of-way. This is in the extreme northwest corner of Flagler County. At the top of the graphic you see here is St. Johns County, and just off of the map to your west-hand side is Putnam. And so that you see the two access points, Potatoeville Road, Yelvington Road. Those will be important as we go forward a little bit more. Oh, there it goes. So our land use, agriculture, and timberlands for this area.
Excuse me, Adam, so I was confused about that. Is the back of this property the St. Johns County line?
Yes, it is. And you can see here from the graphic, that's where all things end, right there.
Okay, so this property is wholly contained in Flagler County?
It
correct?
is.
Okay.
Thank you. Backup plan. Does that one work? Just arrows to the, oh, perfect. And so the zoning here matches the agriculture and timberlands future land use. It's ag zoning, just we'd expect. You also see that for the contiguous parcels. Zone X, not part of a special flood hazard area. And you can see also from the aerial, and this one shows it too, that it's under ag production. It was part of the pasture land that's within this area and owned by First Farms, so that's what we'd expect. Soils, no real surprises here. We do have a mix of soils, and all those were pretty good for growing stuff, so that's what was going on there on the parcel before. And so here's our wetlands, no wetlands there based on the soils map. And so we had asked the applicant as part of our review, okay, being extraction, soil extraction that's happening, you're taking the dirt off, how are you hauling it? And so they gave us these two graphics, included these in your packet. So the route would be Potatoeville to Yelvington, then to points north through St. Johns County. And so you've got that half-mile distance is what the applicants told us it is. And then the other graphic showing the same thing, but maybe just zoomed in a little bit more, showing again those two dirt roads that would be the haul route out of the parcel. And then we looked for the site plan. This was the original iteration of the site plan, and then we asked for some more detail. You did see the two entries here on this iteration of the plan, the original one with the application, and then that then became a little more formal. And so you do have the entrance and the exit. Those are two separate, they actually shifted them from the previous drawing. So your entrance is going to be on the east side, your exit's going to be on the west side of the parcel. And you see loop in, one way in, one way out. And then the pit itself gives you some orientation of how the pit's going to sit on the property, still staying well south of the St. Johns County line. You've got the slopes, and those slopes are what we've seen typically with pit construction. So we see that 4-to-1, and then we see that 2-to-1 then until we get down to the base, and then the full depth being a 20-foot excavation that's happening there. I did mention in the staff report there wasn't any explanation or any narrative about how much material will be taken out, how many trips, kind of some of what we see otherwise. I think this is a fairly small-scale operation. So maybe the applicant can touch on that, some of what they, I'm never good at math on figuring out volume of things, but we had talked before about that, wanting to get an idea of how much of an impact, particularly, we're going to have on our roadways. And so that's always our concern with these. But with this, you can see the dimensions, and I think I included in there, it's 6 acres and change, I think was what we were expecting from the pond site. And so this is an allowed special exception in the ag district for the soil extraction activity. And so just for the record, when the material goes off of a property, it's a special exception. If you're digging your pond on your own property, may still require a permit, but it's not going to be a special exception. You can take an area that's uniform, create a high spot and a low spot. That's something that's a permit on your own property. When you're pulling the material off, special exceptions required. Defined as the easterly 17.5 acres of the east 1/2 of the northeast quarter of the section 2010-28, and again lying north of the Florida East Coast Railroad right-of-way, this haul route through Potatoeville, and then the 2 one-way drives that we had. And then I had conditions that I had added for the board's consideration. Should you choose to approve this request, pond excavation should be limited to the pit area depicted on the site plan. Operations limited to 7:30 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. Monday through Saturday. This is consistent with what we've had in the past. No outdoor storage of heavy equipment or trucks is permitted unless your storage area is screened from view by fencing or natural vegetation. Make sure you get all of your other agency permits, inclusive of Water Management District and FWC permits in case there's gopher tortoise is present. And then you maintain those permits for the duration of the operation. Refuse is collected and disposed of off-site, daily basis. Signage limited to the entrance and exit signs that are shown. No site lightings installed. We understand that to be the case, and so we don't have those impacts onto adjacent properties. Hauling's encouraged to exit the project site heading northbound on Yelvington to the St. Johns County line. Remember, we can't really restrict it here, but really there's no other route that the travel can handle, of travel anyway. The construction of necessary improvements in the public right-of-way through right-of-way utilization if it's necessary. And that ensures then the safe traffic flow and then drainage. You did see the culverts that were noted on the plan for the 2 driveways. And then this special exception runs with the land, and it could be transferable. We've put it in as being that to a subsequent owner or operator, and then provided that all the conditions are still met. Option always there for you is denial, and that would be on the basis that the special exception criteria are not met. And so then you would deny that. We want you to place those reasons for denial on the record. And then you could continue this for a time and date certain. And then I've added this, I've changed this a little bit, where before I had this condition in as part of our stated conditions, but should you wish to add something, go ahead and add it then to our list of conditions. And so instead of listing other conditions as determined by the board, I've got this last one, add the conditions and safeguards to that list that we proposed as staff. Certainly, we're open to those should you feel that additional safeguards are needed. With that, I'll close, await any questions or comments, submit my staff report for the record, and thank you very much for your attention.
Nice job, Adam.
Thank you.
Do we have any questions for staff? Go ahead.
So I'm familiar, we've done the borrow pit scenario. This, we're asking, this is for a pond, but is this essentially a borrow pit, or that's what it is, and it's just going to stay a pond after
Yes, sir.
and is that why we're calling it that?
I think I left that because I think that's how, if I remember right, I think that's how the applicant referred to it in their application. But the activity that's listed in the LDC is soil extraction. And so the end result is that there will be a pond on the property.
Okay. And, sorry, and the only way they could enter and exit through is through the yellow, what is it called? Yelvington Road? They're not going to use the Potatoeville Road to come in?
Yeah, Potatoeville, I don't think goes anywhere further to the east, and so it runs kind of at that angle. And let's see if you can see it there on the aerial.
So they're essentially going to be taking the dirt into
St. John's.
St. Johns County.
Yes, sir. And then yeah, if you can't see it here, but Potatoeville kind of peters out further to the east. And so, and then just to the south of Potatoeville, I think that's still the high tension power lines that are there, so that, from those points, old railroad bed that's there, but it's not really passable to traffic as we would consider it now.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Adam, this was said no phases. Do we have any time limit on these special exceptions? So like, for instance, 100 years from now, can you still be digging this pit?
We had previously put in a 5-year time limit, and I don't know how useful that was for us in the past. We've had it where applicants have had to come back. Probably most notably wasn't the pit, but it was the C&D operation that's off of County Road 13, where we've had a time frame with that, and they've come in through several iterations for renewals of that special exception. But we have had in the past a 5-year time frame. The applicant maybe could speak about what their expectation is, and if you wanted to put that a time frame on the use, 5 years may be a good starting point.
I mean, this is still a relatively low-density area population, but, I mentioned 100 years for a particular reason. If they're still digging this pit, they dig a little bit now and a little bit later, it could be sitting fallow for 30, 40 years. People start having a subdivision out there, then all of a sudden this excavation activity happens on newly paved roads. No one's taken that into consideration. People out there didn't realize that this thing still was a pit. I mean, it seems like it should have an end date because the consideration we're giving to it have to do with its current conditions and not the conditions in many, many years in the future. So
I think that's fair.
You also, this is just a side question. I do know when I buy dirt, I have to pay sales tax. Does this, do you know if this generates sales tax for Flagler County? Or if they're selling it up to St. Johns County, do we still get the sales tax on this? Do you
And I
know?
don't know. I didn't think of that.
Okay, just,
yeah.
just curious. Okay, any other questions for staff? Very good. Thank you, Mr. Mangle. At this time, we'd like to have the applicant come forward. Please identify yourself in the microphone.
Good evening, I'm James McGee.
Okay, did you?
This is my first time ever doing this stuff, so I don't know, I mean,
You don't have to. You're welcome to explain what you're doing. If not, there might be questions coming from us anyway, but if you
I
want,
gotcha.
this is your opportunity. You
So-
have the floor for a few minutes to say whatever you want on this particular item.
right. So my ultimate goal, I don't own the property yet. I'm trying to get approval for the pond so I can move forward to buy the property. I don't have the money to buy the property, but my ultimate goal is to dig a pond for agriculture use, natural water source for whatever, but also to help me pay for the property in the long run. But as far as the term, how long it'll take to dig the pond, I mean, at most 2 years, but ideally a year and a half to a year. And as far as expected loads, around about 7,500 to 8,000 loads.
Loads?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yep. That pretty much sums it up for me. I mean, you've done a great job
All
there.
right. Do we have any questions for the applicant? I just have one question. Would a 5-year limitation on your special exception, and if you go beyond that, you have to come back for additional approval, would that be a problem for you?
No, sir.
Okay. Go ahead.
So you're not the owner of the property. You're gonna own it once you start digging, or are you?
Yeah, so as soon as, if I get approved tonight, I'm gonna move forward with closing on the
Okay.
property, yes.
Okay.
But I don't wanna strap myself because I
Right.
don't essentially have the money to do it without
Yeah.
being able to do this.
I'm with you, Mr. Langelo, in regards to putting that 5-year time limit on it. And the applicant said he, looking at max two years or so. So I think that would be a good condition for the application.
Any other comments? Any other questions? Okay, we're going to open it up to the public, and we'll go from there. So thank you very much.
Yes, sir, thank you.
At this point, would anyone in the public like to come forward and make any comments on this? Please identify yourself.
My name is Sam Methvin, and I own the adjoining property to this, in fact, just about all of it. But, consider both a friend and a neighbor. Don't want to offend anybody. But when when you dig a hole, it's hard to get rid of it. So I've been there since '82. I bought property in '82. Y'all didn't answer where, but I didn't know exactly where. But maybe I should have got with Bo and discussed
Well,
exactly what his
are
plan
you
would
looking
be
at the
more of.
map on the screen?
Yeah, but it's, 17 acres is, is it going to be shifted to one end? There's power lines on one end of it, and also it's farmland, which has been farmed up until this year. And I farmed it for years. I'm retired now, just on fixed income, so I'm kind of limited income there. But we live right there, and but it did say how deep was 20 feet. But I did talk to the engineer, and what seems to start happening with borrow pits is, well, let's just go to 30 feet. Well, let's just go to 50 feet, which I think that's the state maximum, So, we may can end up with who knows what. But, and also, I talked to the engineer, he mentioned 1,000 feet from well. My well is less than 1,000 feet from this, but you already said, use the word borrow pit. But actually, I have 2 wells. I have my agricultural well. It's way less than 1,000 feet. It's maybe a lot closer. But my household well is less than 1,000 feet. So, I don't want my well to go dry. We have to live there. So,
How deep is your well, sir?
160.
Thank you.
The original agricultural well, I don't know. It's artesian, so it's probably at least that deep.
Right.
And about the equipment, he did say that you couldn't see the equipment, which I'm used to looking at equipment, but I'm thinking 6 acre, I don't know if he's going to use his machinery he has now, which that don't offend me at all, but is he going to bring bigger equipment? I guess I can get with him to know more about what he really wants to do. But in 5 years, been there for 5 years, but one of my main concerns is after the dirt's gone, it's going to be there forever. Then what you going to do? Of course, he said he wants to privately, which I just learned that tonight. He said he wants to privately own it and live there, which he doesn't own the property now, so it's owned by Mr. Lee, which I'm acquainted with him. He has been renting the farmland there from me. I've been retired for several years, so I rented to him. He farmed, vegetables on there. But so since I don't know what Mr. Lee's, what's he going to do after the hole's dug? My fear would be turning it into a mud bogging pit or something. I don't know what they're going to do with it. So I do have a lot of questions there about what would it do to my property. And if I still have, if you've seen on the map there, it's actually a field, a vegetable field. So would that affect my agricultural production? I mean, I'm not farming, but I've rented to people who want to farm. I can rent it to somebody else to farm. I get income out of that. Will that affect, the water? I don't know what. I would need more study of what this thing would do and how far is it going to go. There's going to be limits. It's 20 foot deep and that's it. Or you start going deeper or bigger. Once it starts going, when you stop, and then when they do stop, the dirt runs out. Of course, he said he's going to do it privately, but right now it's not his land. So I don't know really, I'm just kind of in limbo. So that's, right now I just kind of say, let's pump the brakes a little bit and see what, I need more information. I guess I should have researched it more, but I can get with Mr. McGee and kind of get their thoughts on it. I can even talk to Mr. Lee. He's
Okay, thank
hard to
you.
get hold of, but that's
Thank
all
you
I
very,
have.
thank you very much. We didn't have the clock on, but we're just giving him his time. Anyone else like to come forward and make a comment on the item? Okay, I'd like to close the public comment, and the applicant can come forward and give a rebuttal if you want. If you felt like, if anything you'd like to respond to, you're welcome to do it, but you don't have to. Up to you, sir. I know that there might be a few questions anyway, so it's up to you. Okay, applicant is not going to come forward for a rebuttal. Okay, this is us, at this point, we're going to have a board discussion. I actually have a question, but I'll leave you guys to have questions first. Good.
I have a question. The gentleman said that he was only going to take out so much dirt, how many loads? Maybe we make that part of a caveat that that's what he's limited to. Because
Right.
it seems that he's taking the dirt out to pay for the property.
Correct.
So maybe we put a caveat in there that that's what you're entitled to take out and no more. This way, I understand the other gentleman's problem with the water source, and wouldn't be fair to him to be impeded by this project.
Mr. Mangle, to respond to Mr. Goodman's question, I got to look at this, but wasn't one of your conditions that he build it according to the plan? And the plan does limit the depth to 20 feet and the slopes. So if he was to go further than that, he'd be violating the plan. Granted, except for, maybe the neighbor next door, we would not necessarily, we don't require any type of a underwater survey to determine that. But is that correct, though? He would be limited by the application to the 20 feet.
That's correct. And also the intent here with this is that the area of the pit would be limited to that 900 by 330 that you see, side setbacks being 114 feet on each side, and then to the south, 150 feet off, so that the earlier question of where this is in orientation on the property, it's at the south portion. It's got 721 feet then to the north line of the parcel. And so what we'd expect is that the activity would conform to this, inclusive of the depth.
Okay, I want to ask a couple questions on his comment of activity. So obviously, he's agricultural, so any activity that's allowed in agricultural, whether he digs this pond or not, is allowed there. Does any of that include, as one of the public comments was, public activities like that, like, like
Mud bogging?
bogging and whatever? I don't think you can mud bog in a 20-foot pond unless you had a really big tires, but.
Unlike other jurisdictions, we would not have that as a permitted use in the ag district. And I don't think, running through the special exceptions, I don't think that's listed there either. There's a long list of special exceptions in the ag district. Probably the only, or maybe the most noxious out of that list that I can think of, there's probably two. There's one that's animal rescue. We don't call it that. It's for a non-household pet animal sanctuary, I think is how we refer to it. And then the other one would be a pistol or rifle range that's there, and those are both special exception uses in the AC district. Otherwise, the uses are all fairly consistent with silviculture, agriculture, raising of crops, keeping of animals for commercial purposes.
So let me just throw a crazy scenario out there. Obviously, it's not going to be mud bogging, but, and I know the answer to this, I'm just throwing it out there for the public consumption here. If the applicant, who then would own the property, dug the pond out and wanted to hold boat races in this thing, I'm assuming if the boat were private people racing, it wouldn't be anything that we could say or do about it. But if they was charging admission or any other type of commercial activity involved with that, they would be, correct?
You are correct. You often hear us refer to gratuitous guests. And so that is our concern then. And if you have yourself, your friends over to your property, that's part of the property rights that you're able to enjoy. And whether it's big boats or little RC boats, whatever it may be, you could certainly do that on the property.
Okay, do we know if there's a clay level below this ground, and if so, roughly how deep?
I don't know on that. And then you saw the soils
Yeah,
coming back
that-
with, both of those are fines, I think, on that. So you have your Riviera fine sand and then your Pineta Wabasso complex. And so I think I don't even need to worry about the 17 and the 40 to the north, but those are the ones we have there. So I think the objective was the fines here, and those fines are, I think, suitable for fill. But the quick answer is I don't know of a clay layer here.
Yep, the applicant would like to come forward and answer that question. Did you get any type of a soil analysis of the depths of what was down there?
As far as actually official analysis, no.
No, but you went out with a backhoe and dug a hole or whatever you did.
I'll be lucky to make the 20 foot. It's roughly about 15 foot, and it's solid black, nasty clay that you can't do nothing with.
Between 0 to 15 feet, was there a clay level at all?
No.
So it was pretty much sand down 15 feet.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I don't know if you want to add anything else to that. That was my question.
Okay.
No?
I
Okay.
have a question.
While you're up there,
Yep, go ahead.
so you plan on living there?
That's my question.
My ultimate goal, yes, there's a 10 acre parcel that splits to two 17s. I'm gonna try and buy that parcel too eventually, but I already own two parcels out there, which I already adjoined those two. And I'm trying to get the 17 acres and then the 10 acres, and that'll give me one rather large parcel. But we have horses already. I want to get cattle, but yes, that is my ultimate goal.
So you wouldn't be specifically building on this property?
Personally, yes.
So this parcel right here, you would build your residence on?
No, sir.
No. It would be on one of the other properties that you
Correct.
plan on
Yes, sir.
purchasing,
Yes, sir.
hopefully. And you said you own properties already adjacent or touching this property, or just out there somewhere?
Not touching. I got one parcel separating them. It's the 10 acre parcel. I don't know.
Show up here.
Yep. So, Okay, so in this,
Close.
yeah, that's, so that parcel there is what I own currently,
Which one?
the one that,
If you look behind you,
I'm
it's the one at the corner of
sorry.
One at the corner of Yelvington and Potatoeville.
Yellington and Potato.
Okay.
So I own that parcel currently, and then the next parcel to the right is the 10-acre parcel that I'm gonna try and get after I get the 17 acres. And then I'll join all them properties as one.
And then I have to
Parcel.
imagine the gentleman that came up for public comment, he must be this big parcel right here,
Yes, sir.
And that must be his house, the one that's Xed out.
right in the.
Yes, sir.
He's signified by saying yes, nodding his head. Okay.
Yeah, that's good.
Mr. Goodman, did you have questions too? Or did he answer that? No questions?
That's-
Boy, no questions? Okay, I do have one other question. So do we have, does anyone have any information as to when you dig a pond, how much vertical drainage of the soil that would happen in this type of soil? The reason why I asked for the clay depth is I'm more familiar with, our western side of the county, which you can dig 2 feet to maybe 5 feet down, and you hit a clay level, and that water doesn't go from there. I mean, you basically are trapping that water. If you're 15 feet deep of sand, that water's going to drop down. What I don't know, you're 115 feet from the side property, 114, is if there's any information, if you dig that pond down to the 20 feet, will you hydraulically be pulling the immediate area around you past that 114, the water level lower than that? Do we have any information on that? You don't know, Adam?
Not strategic.
Yep.
No,
Like, you don't
sir.
know that
I
either?
don't, I mean, if you look at a ground level table, it's gonna look pretty much like your water table. It'll look pretty much like the ground slope. So as you pull the water down, yes, it's gonna gradually curve down to wherever I had the water pumped down to. But essentially going out 115 foot, I'm not really sure. And as far as affecting any aquifers, or it's gonna be nowhere near that.
No.
Yeah, it seems pretty far. I mean, if he was 10 feet off the property line, I mean, it might be a little concerned. I just didn't know if there was any distance that's the standard,
I got a
4 to
number of
1 or whatever.
I have a number of ponds on my place that doesn't affect it like that.
Okay.
And certainly doesn't affect a well that's 160 foot deep into the aquifer.
Right, that's in the aquifer. I don't expect that. I just didn't know if the groundwater for his, crops would be affected,
No.
Okay, do we have any other questions for the applicant or for staff? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'd like to, at this point, bring it to the board for any comments or motion.
Yeah, I'll make a motion, we approve it based on the conditions that we discussed
Second.
earlier.
Okay, I have a motion. We have a second? Mike, does that include the 5-year limitation on the borrow pit?
Yes.
Okay. And Mr. Connor, that would include that 5-year too with your second? You seconded it, right?
A second,
That would include the 5-year limitation on
it
the,
does.
okay. Do we have any discussion on this motion?
And the other conditions that were mentioned in the presentation, that is a limitation to the designated pit area,
All these.
Right.
Yeah, the-
Yeah, right. In his,
consistent with the edge slope and all of the, all
right,
of
there
the
was one
conditions
of,
regarding the operation.
right, there was one of the numbers, I don't remember which one it was, but it does specifically talk about this plan that talked about the depth, the slope, and the size
Right.
and location.
All that is part of the
Part of
motion, I
the-
believe.
Okay, any other discussion? Okay, at this time, I'd like to have a vote. All those in favor of the approving the special exception with all of the notes given by staff and by the board signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Nope. Done? Okay. We are at item number 7. Again, quasi judicial. Do we have any ex parte communication we'd like to divulge on this? All right. So this is a preliminary plat in the PUD development, and I know that, I guess you're taking care of it, right? Okay. Go ahead, Adam. Are you doing it?
Yes, sir. And this should look familiar because you've seen it through one iteration already as part of the planned unit development. And so the PUD wasn't approved too long ago, but this is the phase 2 iteration of the plat. Here's the parcels that are part of that Phase 2, and you'll see how it fits here in just a moment when we go to the plat sheets themselves. Land use that we expect, mixed use low, consistent with the DRI. PUD, also consistent with the Hunters Ridge DRI. And then none of this is within the special flood hazard area. It's all in Zone X. We do have some soils here that are of concern with the depressional, the 0.8, the Gator, Jicarilla, Riviera depressional soils. And so you do have some expectation of wetlands, and the wetlands line up pretty good with the soils map. And so then we have that wetlands map that shows those more directly. And you saw in the narrative in the staff report where we do have some direct primary and secondary impacts, remembering that the conservation area to that west side had that set aside, anticipated these impacts. Again, our goal, minimizing and avoiding those impacts where possible, but realizing that it's necessary as part of development in this area. Look at the wetlands map, it speaks for itself. And so you've got these areas where you do have those conflicts that happen, and they've provided for that, and those will be appropriately permitted as part of the development process. Here's those 6 pages, I think, of the plat itself. And so looks like a standard plat. All of our dedications are listed there for the tracks. This is a little weird, and we may need to talk some about this at some point after this. It may yet change. Track J that you see running along the side there, being an off-site utility easement. So running along the east side, that part of Hunters Ridge Boulevard is not yet platted, and so that's intended to be a separate tract. It can be shown that way, but just remember then when we do something with that, maybe that roadway plat that's going to be extending Hunters Ridge Boulevard, that Track J will need to be replatted. And so something that maybe isn't the best of ideas, but right now it's listed as a tract with an easement across it. And we'll have some more discussion with that. That may yet change before it gets to the Board of County Commissioners, but that Track J leading to Tract L, the lift station. So that gives you your utility connection, your loop that you have, and I think for both water and sewer, but don't quote me on that, at least sewer, because we're going to the lift station. And so here's your 89 lots that you see on this key map, and then the remaining sheets show those details. Again, I think mixes of 40s, 50s, and 60s that we talked about before in the PUD. And so all the sheets that are there, you have Tract A. I think this is the one that's going to have the drainage area. So you see that in front of you. That's the primary pond for stormwater purposes. You also see an irrigation well that's within that northwest corner of Tract A, and noted that in the staff report. And here's the detail that shows the Tract L, that extension of the right-of-way tract that provides that north entrance. You have the 2 points of access for the subdivision, eventually the curve tables that we always see with these things in that final sheet. And so had the PUD approved back in March 18th of this year, 89 single-family detached lots. Largest one's lot 49, right around 0.2 of an acre. Smallest are multiples at basically 4,400 square feet. There's 12 tracts in all, and all those presently are dedicated to the Hunters Ridge Homeowners Association of East Florida. The 2 easements that are described, one across the roadway tracks for access, another one to the City of Ormond Beach, and that's specific for utilities. And that talks about mainly J and L is what those are talking about. City of Ormond Beach is a utility provider. Nothing's within the special flood hazard area, as I mentioned, and you got those wetland impacts to be permitted through the district. No subdivision waivers needed here with this one because we've got those 2 sites for access that are going to happen, and the subdivision will eventually, we anticipate, become part of the Ormond Station CDD. So the other part about the dedications, and it's clean here for us, the 12 tracts will be dedicated presently to the Homeowners Association, but subsequent conveyance could happen to the CDD or to others, and we anticipate that some of those tracts will be handled that way. Right now, for continuity of the platting, the development where we're at, it's good for it to stay with the Homeowners Association. And so we've got 3 options for you here with this. This first one, for approval, and then that very similar as what we've seen before with development in Hunters Ridge. No construction to commence prior to county land development permit, no final plat approval until the extension of the potable water and sanitary sewer is installed and approved by the City of Ormond Beach. And then finally, any subdivision improvements not completed by the developer to be bonded or other surety provided consistent with the requirements of the Land Development Code. Alternatively, you could come back and deny preliminary plat for Gardenside Ormond Station Phase 2. Grounds for that at this point would potentially be inconsistency with the PUD, or more likely inconsistency with comp plan LDC DRI development order. So if you got cause for that, we want you to express that on the record if you've got those, that inclination. And then again, remembering you're making that recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners. And then the third option, continuing this to a time and date certain for us to come back, either us or the applicant, and give you more information that you'll need to be able to render a recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners. With that, I'll close. Wait any questions or comments, submit that report for the record. And also, just to state, we've got the construction plans and the stormwater calculations as a separate item that hopefully made it where your agendas were a little easier to load. But we had that as a separate attachment off of our webpage that hopefully kept the volume of the actual agenda item down a little bit. So we're trying that out. Again, thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Mangle. Okay, would the applicant for Allen Engineering like to come up and make a presentation?
Good evening. This is John Smith from Allen Engineering, representing the applicant. No questions this time.
No presentation.
Pretty straightforward plat. Adam did a great job. Like you said, it's similar to the other plats you've seen for Harnish Ridge.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone have any questions for staff or for the applicant? Okay, Adam, I have to ask you a question. This is just a dumb question, but I know it's preliminary plat. You talked in there about they would not be able to go forward. One of them was without the water from Ormond. Does that mean the concurrency on the water is up to St. John's Water and Sewer, up to St. John's? So they'll dictate whether or not this property goes forward if whether or not they feel they have the capacity on water and sewer, and we're not basically involved with that part of it. We're just letting them, if they get it, then they get it. If they don't get it, they don't get it. And that's not, it doesn't have anything to do with us now or in the future.
I think it's fair to say that concurrency determination on that water side ultimately is going to be made by the city, and so that
The city of Ormond Beach.
City of Ormond Beach, and so they've already safe to say, probably good for the record, that they have the interlocal agreement with us that says they will serve. And then that then moves in at a subdevelopment level as a subdivisions come in with an agreement between the developer and the city, and very specific on obligations, on timing. And so that it's been progressing very well, even with the dispute that we're under now. But that allocation directly for water is based on the city's cups through the St. Johns River Water Management District. On the sewer side, it'll be based on the city's permitting of their wastewater treatment and collection system through FDEP. And so both of those then kind of working on separate sides of the operation, but that ultimately final platting can't be approved until those systems are installed and permitted and approved.
So the permit will give them a vested right for, I'm assuming, a certain amount of years, and they would be able to then go forward with their construction.
That's true.
And without the potential homeowners down the road getting the rug pulled out underneath them necessarily.
That is correct.
Okay. And the applicant is nodding yes. Okay. All right. That was my question. Thank you.
Thank you.
At this time, I'd like to open it up to the public comment. Anyone like to come forward and make a comment on this? Please do so now. Seeing no one come forward, I bring it back to the board. Anyone have any other comments or a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve it.
Okay, we have a motion to approve it. I'm assuming that's with all the recommendations of staff. Yes.
I'll second that
And we
motion.
have a second by Mr. Lombardo. Does anyone have any further comments on this item? Discussion. Okay, well, we'll bring it to the vote. All those in favor of approving with all the, approving the preliminary plat with all of the approving for the board, the county commission to approve, but our recommendation is to approve. Signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, you're all set. Thank you very much. Okay, we're on item number 8. This is project 2023. Oh, first of all, again, any quasi-judicial, any ex parte communication? Seeing everyone's saying no. Project 2023-120063. This is a special exception in the MH3 zone.
The last.
You're doing this again.
The dessert
she
for you
was doing
tonight
so
is,
good, man.
yes, I know. I don't think Ms. Kinney wanted this one, And so this one we bring forward, this is a little different. This has a little bit of a nuance to it. So we're kind of like, why are we here talking about an existing campground? This one came in because of an electrical permit that the owners wanted to pull. And at the point, it's not an approved campground. And so we retroactively, effectively, we're going back and we're saying, hey, this is the process we have. And this touches on what you had mentioned, Mr. Chairman, about gratuitous guests. And so if you had your own property, potentially, something like this, appropriately permitted with your, all of your infrastructure you need, almost to the point where, you can imagine somebody just having their friends over. You're staying over on the property. Be real clear on the record, I'm not talking about somebody, your crazy uncle staying in the RV on your property for months. But this would be, the difference here is that the objective on the part of the owners is to make it available for commercial purposes, for creating an income for them. And so here's the property, and you probably saw me in the write-up. I don't know how this was kind of pulled out as its own separate parcel. That's not how it was when we started the process. And one of the requirements we have in the MH3 zoning is there's a 10-acre minimum. And so that's one of the kind of initial concerns with this. But I think it's useful, at least you can see here through the highlighted portion, that this is effectively the 12 campsites that formed historically Hank's Hideaway. And so you have this area. If you're not familiar with where it is, it's out at the end, Dead Lake, just to the east side of Crescent Lake, kind of the end of County Road 2006. You had the fish camp parcel the county has, and then this abuts that in that corner, northwest corner that's there. And so from the future land use standpoint, it does show up as, I think that's going to be agriculture and timberlands. I reported that way. Now that I'm looking at it, I'm wondering if it's recreation open. Nope, it's agriculture and timberlands, because you see to the north, it would have been great if it had the recreation and open space. That would have made more sense, especially because of its historic use. But ag and timberlands, and then it had the mobile home park designation through its zoning, and that was reflective of the historic use that had been there. Not only the campground, but also a historic mobile home park use that was there. Along with that, there was a water system, sewer system, all those kind of things. Useful here, we don't have a special flood hazard issue to deal with. And so we're outside of the SFHA. And then what you do notice with the soils, the limit of the moderately wet area, the 29 that's there, actually corresponds to the wetland, to that canal little cut that comes in. That gives some water access off to Dead Lake. And so those two kind of line up pretty closely. And you can see that here directly on their site plan where that canal comes in. So you have that tie-in. And this is a layout that they've shown here, again, relying very much on the history of Hank's Hideaway and how that had been historically laid out. And then also then meeting our 50-foot minimum space width requirement that we have within our land development code within the MH3 zoning district. And you can see the layout, the roadway that would come in, the turnaround that would be there. And so the limits of the improvements. Of note were the electrical, I think they were, my eyes are failing me, but the electrical lines were shown, sewer lines and water lines both are also shown here, so that you can see the extent of the availability through all the 12 sites. And so quickly, the total parcel area, 13.5 acres. That request then prompted by the electrical permit, 12 campsites. One of the requirements is that everything's got to have its own self-contained, but also with full hookups. The users described by the campground owners as families that had historically come there over the years, and that is particularly during the fishing season. Recommended special exception conditions based on our LDC, other agency regulations and requirements, TRC comments, and then the characteristics of the campground itself. And then that language I was talking about from the health department. So you've got those two things in play that I think are overall overriding considerations for us. That precondition, everything's got to be self-contained that comes in there, even though you have the availability, must have the availability of the sewer and water to each site. And then you have the duration of stay must be less than 6 months. So with that, I've got some fairly wordy conditions that I've listed as our safeguards should the board choose to approve the special exception. With that, the first one, parcel inclusive of the campground shall not be reduced to less than 10 acres in area. That's a requirement in the zoning district. Development to occur in substantial conformity with the site plan that you viewed dated March 12th, consisting of the 12 campsites. Owner of the campground will comply with all laws and regulations pertaining to campgrounds, including maintaining required permits and approvals, the agencies having jurisdiction for the duration of the use. Realize that's a little vague, but I can't cover every possible agency requirement that's out there. Each campsite will need to be individually delineated and numbered for identification and emergency purposes. No campsite should be occupied by the same guest, including the guest families or invitees, for a period in excess of 6 months per calendar year. And that's state law. The owner, as the responsible party for the campground, shall maintain a register of guests, including dates of arrival and departure. The register made available to the county for inspection upon request. We've done this elsewhere where we've had similar requests. Entrance driveway maintained to meet a minimum compaction requirement suitable for emergency vehicle access, including horizontal and vertical clear area, the free of obstructions, basically right around 14 feet. And then with your turning area, the cul-de-sac minimum clear diameter of 100 feet, as shown on the plan. Recreational vehicles at campground will be self-contained with holding tanks. That's what I touched on with the health department's requirement. And then this also is a health department requirement, a recreational vehicle park operating permit required to be obtained from the Department of Health, maintained for the duration of the use. Limited use public well and water system and an on-site sewage treatment and disposal system. Potable water and sanitary sewer hookups at each of the campsites will need to be initially permitted, subsequently maintained for the duration of the use. We need that central system to be installed and to be maintained. No recreational vehicle shall be permanently set up on any campsite. No structure shall be permanently attached to any recreational vehicle. Park model trailers should not be permitted within the campground. Electrical service to be provided to each campsite through a recreational vehicle plug connection. When I'm talking about there, I don't want anything hardwired into any of that. So it's going to be very much temporary, very much using a recreational vehicle plug. Pertinent structures, including carports, porches, screen rooms, similar structures, subject to the issuance of a building permit, shall either be freestanding without a physical connection to a recreational vehicle or attached to a recreational vehicle with removable attaching devices. That's actually taken right from statute, so that's something we can allow, but that's in that very specific language. Accessory structures, including sheds, shall be subject to issuance of a building permit and shall be a minimum of 10 feet from any recreational vehicle or other accessory structure. What I'm trying to do there is make a difference between appurtenant structures and accessory structures. So if you look there, you're like, well, hold on, you just said attach, but make it where they're not permanently attached. I'm trying to make it where appurtenances are kind of carport, screen room type things, maybe of a temporary nature. Accessory structures more permanent with a 10-foot separation. All taxes, including the county's tourist development tax, state sales tax collected by the owners, remitted to the appropriate taxing authorities. And the final one is special exceptions for over the land subject to the above listed conditions. Modification of these conditions would require a new special exception request. That wordy bit, want to leave that along with the staff report as part of the record and await any questions or comments from the board. The applicant is present, certainly want to hear their feeling on some of those conditions. If there's something there that's unclear, we want to be able to make sure we talk about it now. As you can imagine, there's always a fever pitch as we're getting close to kind of putting these out as part of an agenda item. So there really hadn't been a whole lot of dialogue. I don't think these are going to be particularly surprising, but I'd be interested to see if there's something here that's just we don't understand, we don't like, we can't live with. So I'd hope to hear that from the applicant. With that, again, I'll close, wait any questions or comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. Does anyone have any questions for staff?
I do.
Okay, Mr.
Adam, the parcel that is adjacent to this, that touches the northwest corner of the subject property, that is a county-owned campground, correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions for staff? Adam, just as you were talking about how you rushed it out, I could tell in your staff, in the report.
January?
Yeah, January 9th.
It's flashbacks. I know.
Yeah.
Doggone it.
Okay.
I wish nobody was going to talk about that. It's recycling. But yes,
Oh,
sir.
that's what it was.
That's
Well,
what
I
it
knew
was.
it was.
That's my
when-
excuse.
And the thing is that he presented stuff in March, so I'm thinking, okay, that couldn't have been an old item, so
I
I
apologize
just
for that.
figured you had a typo in there, or
Yeah.
whoever.
Yes.
I do have a couple questions about your special exception. I might as well just bring it up right now. The, one of them, you had a park trailer model, would you call it? what was it called? What was the exact word you had in there? Park trailer? Or model trailer, or what did you call it?
I think I said park trailer, but let's see what,
Yeah, model park trailer, is that what it was? Is- yeah,
Parked trailer
park
or
model
a park trailer?
So is there a defined definition of what that is? Is that just your wording, or is that some, if I look in a dictionary or in a state law book, does that define what that is? Because I don't know what that is. I used to be in a mobile home business, and I don't know what that is.
I think I grabbed that, but I'm not sure if, now that I'm thinking about it, if that's the one that's, there's a section in Florida statute that's a motor vehicle section of statute.
Okay.
And its second part in that language talks about and lists a variety of recreational vehicles. And so what the intent of that section of statute is to outline basically things that can be on the roads. And so the recreational vehicles are very specific to its length and width and height, and they're called out by name. And so one of the ones that's listed there is our park model, what we call maybe inaccurately, what I call inaccurately, a park model trailer. And so what we're talking about there is an ANSI. They have an ANSI standard that they're built to. I think most typically they're not a HUD, because the HUD is your mobile home.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a modular, because that was built to the former DCA seal, now DEO seal. In between there was DBPR. So it's not those. And so they're very clearly, those two are designed for permanent occupancy. The park model trailer is defined as on an axle, built to an ANSI standard and designed for temporary occupancy. And that section it falls into in statute refers to it in that manner, that it's designed for, it's built, its whole intent is temporary occupancy.
Okay, well, that helps, because as long as it can be defined somewhere. I did not know what it was, and I actually had a different thought process of what it was. This question may go more to Sean. Several places that Adam is using in here, he's calling out some references. One is the 6 months. There's another one here that he was referenced, has to do with state law. Here's my question, has to do with that. So let's say 6 years from now, 10 years from now, the state law changes. It could decrease that, increase that, or change it to some other thing. Is the correct way to define these terms is to pigeonhole this today and cement it to this law, or to make him follow that law, state that law, and then maybe reiterate what it is?
I can probably, Sean, if you don't mind. Go ahead. The intent, while there's reference to state law with some of this, our intent with listing these as conditions were to make them effectively conditions specific to this use. So if state law changed, rather than citing in accordance with Section 316/2011 of Florida statute, you'll do whatever it says there. That's why we wanted to list these out.
You did not want to necessarily mirror the state law.
Correct.
You wanted to define a 6-month tenancy, and I forgot the other one you had in there, but those were specific and not necessarily trying to mirror the law.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Is that-
all right.
And I would like to add on to that. State law does not outright prohibit living in an RV. But when you look at the definitions, it does say not intended for occupancy beyond 6 months.
Right.
Nowhere does it say thou shalt not live in one of these beyond 6 months. In fact, I think there are people who drive around the country from place to place, but the intent is to only stay in one spot for 6 months at a time.
Right.
And so I think the way Adam is approaching this is correct, because we do have the ability here locally to say, you need to move at the 6 months' time.
Okay.
That'll be part of the zoning on the land.
Okay. All right. Good. Like I said, I wasn't sure if we needed to mirror the state law, or we just make our own rules. And if we were trying to mirror the law, then are we doing it correctly? So thank you, Sean. So you earn your paycheck tonight. Okay. Anyone have any other questions or comments for staff?
I just want clarity. So these are RVs that are driving in, parking, setting up shop, renting for a weekend to 6 months, packing up all their stuff and going. It's not the declarants of the property. They're going to be putting tiny homes on it, or any type of permanent structures or more mobile home structures, but are owned by them, and then people are driving up to them in their own vehicle and parking and using them. They're all 12 of them are going to be RV type parking spots for a campground type scenario.
That's the way it's been described to us by the owners. They did also mention that there are families, so I don't want to say it wrongly, because I do believe there's some folks who have staked out their campsite, and who, we understood that there's a garden, a flower garden planted on one of them. And so these aren't necessarily available for transient sites year-round, but we wanted to be very clear of our intent that they're not to be occupied on a greater than 6-month basis. And so, as it's been described to us by the owners, that these are friends, potentially other families that historically have come here, primarily part of the spec season, and come in and taking advantage of that winter period, and then moving back home. And so that they may have I do believe there are RVs that are set up there, that are parked there for longer periods than the 6 months. And what the intent here with this, and I don't know if I said it as explicitly as I needed to, you can have it parked there. You can't stay in it for any period greater than 6 months. If there was an idea that you wanted to have a shed, you wanted to put that on there, we're not against that. This is consistent with what we've done elsewhere. You just need to have that permitted and have it separated from itself and any others similar by at least 10 feet.
I have a simple question. So somebody stays for 6 months. They leave for a day. They come back. 6 more months?
Shouldn't be, because it's six months in a calendar year, and so that's why we.
Oh, that you didn't say. It didn't
Yeah.
say 6 months in a calendar year. Okay, thank you.
And so that was we wanted to be very tight with that. And then also, that's the other reason why, and others, we don't think it's going to be a problem here. We wanted to make sure we could look at the books.
Go ahead.
So the friends, family, whoever's, those RVs that are there on those properties now, are they owned by the declarants of the property, or are they owned by the people that are visiting? And then they just they park their RVs there. They could use it for 6 months, then they have to leave their RV for the rest of the year and come back, and then
They could take it with them, they could leave it there. The only restriction we would have is on the occupancy for 6 months. And so of their own occupancy. And so where we've had this elsewhere, again, us chasing it maybe through a visitor log would be that, maybe they have it permanently set up and they want to have it available as part of a rental program. I don't think that's what we're talking about here, but they had it where, hey, you can put it out there. I'm going to rely on the owner to go through and make my RV available for somebody to come and stay over the weekend. They could do that.
Okay, that was my next question. So the person, they're leaving their RV on the property, they use it for 6 months or whatever it might be, then that their RV that sits on their property, the declarant's property, now is available for someone else to drive in and come vacation there and use it during that period of time.
I don't think that's happening. I think instead it's just locked up, but I think that could be a possibility. And so the way we've structured this, that's something that they could do. As part of a permanent commercial campground, that's something that could happen.
Okay.
Park model trailer, are we talking about tiny houses on wheels?
That would be it's pretty close to that. It's not, and it's got a specific square footage that's there as part of the ANSI requirement. And so that if you exceed that, you're then heading into the mobile home arena. And so it's very specific.
And why are we restricting those?
Others, we've had it where those creep in because those are legitimately allowed elsewhere as part of an RV park. The health department will allow park model trailers, and when you have a park model, it's typically permanently installed. And
Well, if it's not, though, if it meets all the other criteria that's been delineated here, then why would that be called out separate from another type of mobile RV?
I'd counter that the park models we've encountered have been less mobile in the end, that at least in practice, that those have typically taken on more permanence, and that's why I think we're sensitive to it here.
Better.
They might. Maybe that's a matter. I tell you what, if you've got one of those $1 million RVs that's out there, I'd argue with you about that a little bit. But
Yeah, some of those tiny homes look like chalets.
Yeah, that's true.
Any other questions for staff? Okay, we still will hear from the applicant and get another round. At this point, I'd like to have the applicant come forward. Is the applicant here? There he is, okay. Please identify yourself. Now you got to come do it at the microphone, ma'am. We're being televised and recorded, so for the record, we want to see you and know who you are.
Okay.
Thank you, dear.
I'm Judy McDonough. My parents bought the property in '67 and they put the trailer park in. They named it Hanks Hideaway Trailer Park. So that's where the name came from. All the infrastructure is still there from that trailer park. But we just feel like it would be an asset to the community. And yes, I agree. I don't want permanent residents, in the campground. That's not our intentions. And the reason why we divided the parcels up, my late husband was a fallen officer, and I've been exempt from paying property taxes. And so to homestead it, the appraiser's office said, we should divide it up. And that was taken from the appraiser's office. But my brother and I were talking, we don't know what to do about that. Maybe, just section off 3 acres of the property so that there will be still 10 acres left, if that's the minimum, or can we just be grandfathered in from what it was previously? I don't know. So I don't know what to do about that. So I'm just asking, that we keep marching forward in this. And, we love the county. We love it. And so, I don't know what else to say.
Okay, thank you very much.
So
Does anyone have any questions for the applicant? Go ahead, Mr. Goodman.
Didn't quite understand the acreage. Is the entire acreage more than what's shown on this map, or?
the entire, there's 13.5 acres total between my brother and I. So because he would need to homestead, I need to homestead, and then we have the commercial piece, which would be the campground. And so with me homesteading, I could be exempt
I see.
because of my late husband.
So you're going to split the property into different deeds?
3 parcels.
No.
There's 3 parcels.
Yeah. On this diagram, where are the other parcels?
I might
We
could,
don't have that.
I might can make this happen so that if you can turn around, or if you can see it there, so that black line that's here on that west side of that is your brother's, and then on the east side is Miss McDonough's. And so then this is the commercial part, and you can see where hers extends up. I didn't grab all of the south part, but I'm pretty close. And so you've got the commercial pulled out. I understand what she's describing now, and because of the nature of her homestead exemption, it's got to be this way. So now it makes sense of how it happened. Maybe I'd cave a bit on that 10 acre and have it where, in the event of sale, in the event of something that important to preserve her homestead.
I understand that.
And so that I get that, and that makes sense. And so I don't have a problem with
So it's going to be
configuration.
3 separate lots?
It is 3 separate parcels, yes, sir.
Okay. So we're just deciding on the one parcel where the RVs are?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
But the idea, the rationale was that it came in initially when the application came in December, not January. When it came in December, it was altogether 13 and a half acres. And then we have this requirement in the MH3 that says your minimum is 10. And so, how do we overcome that? I think you have that power through the special exception. I'm not trying to commingle this with a variance at this point, but I think what she's described makes sense of how it's sitting there like it is. again, realizing this had been grandfathered, realizing this is what we've got, there's no intent to expand it, so there's nothing nefarious going on here. I think that's something for y'all to consider. That first point that I had there where I talked about the 10 acres, may need to massage that some so that.
Could you clarify when you say that? Clarify it, you're saying we could massage the 10 acres to what?
I think the
Project site area?
campground's limited as it's depicted by between the site plan and the parcel. I don't have a parcel reference for that, but that area that's shown here is now a separate parcel. It's a sub-parcel out of the parent. I think that's, again, I don't have the parcel number handy right now,
But to define that as the parcel area described in this
This
site
application.
plan, I'm assuming, Sean, that would that clarify it?
Yes, Chairman, that is clear, I think, for the record. And if I could, since you asked, take this opportunity to let the board know that our county court has been very forgiving of these operations that have been grandfathered. We brought a case to the county court for Armadillo Acres in Corona because it no longer met the requirements of the code, and they wanted to re-up their status as a mobile home park, so slightly different, but along the same lines. And the court was very deferential to them and viewed it as a grandfathered use. I would think the same type of rationale would apply in this situation.
Okay. You're talking about the county, not district court, right?
The county court, the local Flagler County
Yep,
Court.
thank you. All right, Adam, we're on the same page now. This presentation, while they are calling it friends and families, when we make this special exception, the limitations don't limit it to a friend and family. And also while whatever vehicles, we want to call them vehicles there, temporary homes or whatever you want to call them, whatever those will be on there, they could stay longer than the 6 months, correct?
Correct.
And they could then be leased or rented to somebody else, not a family member, according to what you had on one of those conditions, but that could be, and that is allowed.
That is.
Okay, just want to make sure that, because you're defining it one way, but the special exception is really allowing them to, this is going to be a commercial operation, and, 5-10 years down the road, if they, there's a big bass fishing tournament out there and they want to lease this thing out for that week, they're totally able to do that.
Can you clarify that? So Mr. Langello said, are we talking about the vehicles being
Yeah, I
there for
mean,
over, because
right,
that's understandable, but the person that's owns that RV or a mobile home can't stay there for more
Right,
than
we're
6
not,
months.
in this, the way he has it presented, we're not defining who has to own those RVs or vehicles. And we're not defining that those vehicles have to leave. It's just that they cannot be occupied by the same family or their friends for more than 6 months at a time. But the vehicle could stay there, and if they wanted to lease it out to somebody else, it would be allowed.
And so even
that
the
we're all on the same
owner,
page to
so,
what-
and even the owner of the vehicle
I
can't
think
stay.
you're right there, but Florida has some fairly specific regulations on mobile home parks. And once you cross the threshold and you've got owner-occupied rental units by the park management or parks that are organized to allow for what you're describing, which is a continual residential presence, you're going to switch over into a different area of law and it's regulated. And so I don't think we got to fear that. This woman wants to do a campground.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah, I don't think we're
mean,
talking
were
about mobile
we're
home parks.
dreaming up some scenarios that may or may not play out, but I think that there are regulations in other areas of the law that may prohibit that or at least control it. Right now we've got 12 units on 13-something acres. That's less than, the density is 1 RV per acre. I mean, I live on an acre in a regular home, and I got a lot of room around me.
Mr. Connor, I think
If
you
I
missed,
parked my trailer on that acre, it would be an enormous amount of green space. So I don't really think that we have a danger in this instance of a lot of density.
Mr. Connor,
Yeah.
just, excuse me, my comment was not about limiting it. I'm saying that that's going to be allowed, that they're going to be able to, this is an RV park, like you see a lot of, I mean, I have one right down my street on A1A, they pull
like,
up and.
like Gamble Rogers. I mean,
Correct.
those
This is
spaces
an
can be
RV park.
occupied 24 hours a
Correct.
day, 365
Right.
days
So
a
even
year.
though there is some mention of family, it doesn't have to be family, and that they're going to be allowed, by the way we're defining it here. Whatever other state
Right.
law may come into play is not what we're talking about. I'm just saying that
I
we're
think
not
that's
making this so it's only their friends and family, the way this is defined.
Right.
I think the 2 points I'd offer, the health department does specifically regulate, license, inspect recreational vehicle parks differently than it does a mobile home park. And that item I has a very specific licensing through DOH. And so that, you know, and I know this because of our discussions with Buelow, where, you know, there's two different operations that are there. There's an RV operation, there's a permanent mobile home operation, and those are two different things. Neither of those ever mix. And then the other part was related to the guests, you know, same guests, including the guest family or invitees. That's our only mention there of family. And so it was the idea that, you know, you're restricted. That's the notion of person that's restricted for the 6 months. And so, you know, I didn't want to compound it. I think that's a good point to make, that it's not restricted to their friends and family. Because of this change, this would become that permanent commercial campground, would allow them to have some income for, hopefully, for the rest of their lives, and be able to advertise this freely.
You're trying to clarify this, and I'm just trying to make sure that we're all on the same page, that this is clarifying it to be an RV park, and that no one stays there for more than 6 months at a time, but that vehicle could stay there, and they could have somebody else go in that vehicle, or the vehicle could leave, and they can pull their own vehicle in. Either way, this is a commercial venture where you don't have to limit to just a family.
That's our intent.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
And just to be clear, the 10-acre rule, we can waive that as part of this special exception.
I believe you can. I don't think that's unusual. It is a dimensional requirement. I think because of the grandfathering that's here in play, I think you can do that.
Well, is 100 by 50, 1,200 by 50 spaces in the appurtenant improvements there, the infrastructure that's there, the parcel that's described in the application, or however else we want to describe it, is that a sufficient size parcel for us to approve?
I think so. I think you're able to, between some recognition of A as being the limitation of the extent of the former grandfathered Hanks Hideaway campground, and then tying in with B, the development to tie in with the site plan. I think between the two of those, I think you'll get there.
So that would adjust subparagraph A then.
Correct.
Correct. What we talked about is limiting that, instead of saying 10 acres, but that would therefore be described as the site plan that was defined here in the project site plan that was submitted
As
to
being
us.
the campground area, and then the applicant and her brother would be free to homestead the rest of the parcel.
Do whatever
at
they
will.
want to the rest.
I like that idea.
Any other questions or comments for
No.
the applicant or staff?
I don't think so. Just asking council in regards to, I guess my only, I don't want to say hang up, because I think this is great. My only question, I guess, and what's throwing me off is, like, I understand campground, RV sites, people drive their RV in, park, hang out, take their RV, leave, next person comes in. My own, like, I'm just trying to grasp the, someone driving their RV in, parking it there, then leaving it there, jumping in their car and going somewhere else, and leaving their RV on their property for them to rent. I mean, is there any legality or issues there in any of the setup that this has that, you know, the county would be liable for, or
No,
anything
no, that would be perfectly fine, actually.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. At this point, I'd like to open it up to the public. Would anyone in the public like to step forward and make any comments on this item? Okay, seeing no one come forward, I'll bring it back to the board. Any other discussion or a motion?
Yes, sir, I'd like to make a motion to approve the application
Okay,
with the conditions listed.
okay, and we talked
Except
about
for
the, first of all, do we have a second? A second, and Mike, I'm assuming you're changing, we agreed to change the item A here to 10 acres to be the
Yeah, yeah,
parcel, the project size is defined in the site plan.
with the part we discussed, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
All Okay, any other discussion on this item? Seeing no other discussion, we'll bring it to a vote. All those in favor of approving the special exception with all the exceptions we talked about, provisions we talked about, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any you disagree? No? Okay, that approves unanimously. Congratulations. You're welcome. Okay, next item, I think, is going to be staff comments. Staff comments, staff?
Nothing particular, just that next month you can expect a presentation from some Flagler Palm Coast High School students about our tree ordinance.
Okay. As you know, I won't be there. I was familiar with this. I guess we did talk about that we're not going to, what the idea that they asked, the request for us to put that in. Again, I don't think that's our position, so I'm just hoping that they don't come forward and say, would you guys please tell your staff to do that? So as long as you couch that, probably, I think that would be interesting. Any other staff comments? Board, okay. Any board comments? I do have something, obviously, I think I told everybody I will not be here. I'll be having surgery, I think, the day before or whatever. So Mike will be the chairman, but I'd like to, with the unanimous consent of the board here, I'd like to appoint an alternative vice chair for that meeting, just for any case Mike isn't here. We have somebody, and I'd like to appoint Mr. Lombardo. Does anyone have any issues with that? Okay, that way just we're covered, Mr. Chairman. So, I mean, Mr. Mangle, in case we, some reason Mike can't make it, don't have to go who's going to be the chairman that night. Public comment. Anyone in the public like to come forward and comment on anything that we have not heard tonight or won't be in a future agenda? Seeing no one come forward, I'll close that and I'll look for adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Mike.